Welcome back to the Beyond Jaws podcast. Today on the podcast, we have Dr. Kaylee Schmidt, who is here to talk about her love for marine sciences, her love for protecting marine biodiversity and doing research on marine biodiversity through a lot of different work, including sharks. She does stereo BRUVs, which we're going to talk about what that means and what that's able to do, not only in the shallows, but also in the deep sea. This is an episode you're not going to want to miss, so let's start the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Beyond Jaws podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lewin. Co-host Andrew Lewin, actually, here with my other co-host, Dr. David Ebert. Dave, how are you?
Great. Looking forward to having another South African on our show. You know, always love having the South Africans on the show here, and this is gonna be an interesting one with Kaylee because she's actually out in the field right now, camping on some game park surrounded by lions and giraffes and all kinds of wildlife. So it'll be interesting to see what she does. And of course, she's affiliated with the South African Institute for Aquatic Biodiversity, which is where I did my PhD back in the day years ago when it was called the J.L.B. Smith Institute of Ichthyology. So it's a lot of nostalgia for me personally having someone on from the institute there, and so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, she's going to take us to the Seychelles, the Comoros, all around South Africa. It is a fun episode. We can't wait to start. So what do you say, Dave? Should we start the interview?
Let's do it.
All right, here's the interview with Kaylee Schmidt. Enjoy, and we'll talk to you after. Hey, Kaylee, welcome to the Beyond Jaws podcast. Are you ready to talk about sharks, marine biodiversity, and maybe even deep sea ecology?
Hey, guys, I am. It really is an honor to be here. Thank you for having me on the show.
Great.
Bet.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we have another exciting Beyond Jaws podcast with an awesome guest today. We have Dr. Kaylee Schmidt, who's a senior research fellow at the South African Institute for Aquatic Biodiversity, which I'm really excited to have someone there from one of my own institutions in South Africa. She's also a co-founder and director of a small nonprofit research organization based in South Africa called the Ocean Life Science. Since completing her PhD in 2020, she's worked as a project coordinator for the development of regional marine spatial planning strategies for the Western Indian Ocean and has been involved in capacity development in the Seychelles through training initiatives to conduct coral reef monitoring and assessment. Her research focuses on advancing marine ecosystem assessments across South Africa and the Western Indian Ocean using remote imagery technologies such as stereo BRUVs and lander systems to collect standardized underwater fish observation data. She's particularly interested in linking ecological data to indicators that inform both national and global biodiversity monitoring and reporting frameworks. Kaylee recently participated in a biodiversity expedition around the Comoro Islands in the Western Indian Ocean where a number of really cool deep sea sharks and rays were filmed. So I thought, well, heck, I have to have her come on the show now and talk about that and about her recent expedition. Her schooling background is she has a marine biology degree, a bachelor's and a bachelor and an honors from Nelson Mandela University, where she also has an MSc and is a PhD, all from Nelson Mandela University. As I mentioned, she's currently a research fellow at SciAb, working in the Marine Remote Imagery Platform, and is a co-founder and director of the small NGO in South Africa, the Ocean Life Sciences. And Kaylee, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It really is a pleasure to be here.
So, we're excited about this. So your first question is how did you get interested in the marine sciences and the type of work you do?
Well, I grew up on the coast, so I was actually born in Johannesburg, and then my family, thank goodness, moved me to the coast, and I grew up in the sea, basically. Surfing, snorkeling, scuba diving from a young age. My brother was a really good surfer, so we were on the beach like almost every weekend. And I just fell in love with the sea, first and foremost. And then I just really enjoyed biology in general. Like I didn't have one of those stories where I always knew I wanted to grow up and be a marine biologist. It kind of just fell into place. And when it all kind of came together, when I started mixing my ocean life with my interest in biology, it just kind of clicked, and I realized this is exactly what I was meant to be doing. And yeah, I just started from there. I had the opportunity to study where I was, in the city that I grew up in, and they had a marine biology program there. So I think that really facilitated the journey, and I just jumped in, and here I am now.
Mm-hmm. So you basically you're from the Eastern Cape. Then you grew up in the Port Elizabeth area, and went to university there?
No, I actually grew up in Natal on the East Coast.
Oh, okay.
So I grew up in a
nice.
a small coastal town just south of Durban, so about 30 minutes south of Durban. So I'm really used to that warm subtropical climate, warm sea. And then I slowly made my way down to Grahamstown, but a bit too far from the sea for my liking.
Yeah, there's a whole story there. We'll talk some other time about why Grahamstown's there, why the Fish Institute's there. It had to do with the fish, actually. So anyway, so from an early age, you decided, like, when you're going to school and you just wanted to go there. So this is a little. I don't want to be too inside baseball, but I know you grew up in Natal and you ended up going to school at Nelson Mandela University, which I know has a good marine biology program. But why'd you go there versus, say, and going to one of the universities in KZN?
Well, I did. I actually started at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, so I did my undergrad there, and I actually went up to my master's at UKZN. So I don't know, and then I only then moved to the Nelson Mandela University for my doctorate, for my PhD, which I somehow wangled to do remotely from Durban. So I stayed in Durban that whole time. I barely set foot on the NMU campus, actually, even though I was registered there. But then I still managed to stay on the warm East Coast for that whole journey, because a lot of my fieldwork was actually in KZN. So even for my PhD studies, I stayed in Durban, but I was still registered with different institutions.
Okay. So you go through and you got your degrees and everything. And so what was your next step once you sort of got your PhD now? And it's like, okay, now what do I do? What did you do?
The now what I do actually kind of started before my PhD. After my master's, I was a little bit like, okay, I got my master's now, what do I do? And I wasn't really set on doing a PhD necessarily. And then that's when I actually did an internship, which was at Scion, which was then in Grahamstown and linked very closely with SciAb. And that's where I met Anthony Bernard, my current boss, colleague now at SciAb, and that's where I started doing all the remote imagery kind of work, was really as an intern, quite like a late career intern. I was there with all these young students, and for my first time actually spending time at Rhodes and in Grahamstown and living the student life there, which was quite fun. And then I really realized that this is what I wanted to do. This is where I started really becoming part of the BRUV team and getting out into the field and spending lots of time at sea and doing really cool remote imagery work. And it was after that 1-year internship that I decided that I wanted to continue with this kind of work. And we had such a really cool team. I think I've really learned along the way that the people around you can really make or break, either your decisions and your situation and, the path that you take. And we had such a cool group of people that I was working with, and I really loved the team. I loved the work. So I decided then that I wanted to do a PhD and continue into research. And an opportunity arose where I could work with Anthony Bernard at SciAb, but then obviously I needed a link with an actual university. So then, we kind of just pulled people in, and eventually had a nice three-person team as my co-supervisory team. It was kind of a bit of a crazy situation because I had Ant, who was in Grahamstown at SciAb. I had Professor Mandy Lombard, who was my main supervisor at NMU, but not actually at the NMU campus herself. And then I had Kerry Sink, who was at Sandy in Cape Town, and then I was in Durban. So, but it somehow just worked.
How difficult was that, or what were the challenges to have a committee that was all over the place? Did you have to do a lot of the logistics and making sure that you can meet online at certain times to make sure that you meet those requirements? Yeah,
I think being quite, it wasn't COVID obviously yet, but we were still quite geared for, online working and online platforms for doing meetings and that kind of thing. So it kind of just worked. It was nice that each person of the committee, as you say, everyone kind of filled a different role. So Ant was very hands-on, and so he would be like doing the work on the ground. He would help with the logistics. So he and I would be in contact a lot, and we would even just jump on a WhatsApp or a call, and we'd all have online meetings every now and then. And then Mandy and Kerry were kind of super busy, very high level, kind of scientists, lead scientists in the country, and didn't have, I just lost my light, sorry. Didn't
That's
have
okay, no worries.
a lot of time to give me. And kind of filled that gap, and they would come in and just help with like the financials and the big picture kind of stuff. And yeah, we would meet in person every so often, and we would have online meetings. I think I was lucky that I could work quite well independently. So it doesn't always work for everyone, but I was quite happy on my
True.
own. I was, quite a dedicated student, and I enjoyed the work that I was doing. So I just got on with it and then just checked in with them every now and then. And as long as they were happy, which I could see that they were, and they just let me be
Yeah.
and do my thing.
I got to interject here just so people, if they wonder why it's a little dark for Kaylee. Her and her husband are actually on a camping trip right now. And so she definitely is going to get like the Iron Woman Award, I think, for this year for calling in from the field, literally like on a camping trip. So it's a little dark. It's nighttime in South Africa right now. So just so people want to know why it's a little dark there.
This is a podcast first, which is awesome.
It's
we
a
love
podcast
breaking
first.
the barriers. This is great.
Yeah, it's new barriers. So and the other thing too is just to give people a sense of the geography. Don't worry about it. We appreciate it. She doing this remote stuff. It's like if you're imagine being back in the day, this is whatever 6-7 years ago, being in San Francisco and talking to people in Miami and in New York or in South Africa.
Distance.
That's kind of the what she's basically trying to carry on and do a PhD on.
Right.
So that's
awesome.
quite a thing to pull off there.
Kayla, I have a question around the spatial analysis, even the BRUVs. Now, these are all not relatively new technologies, but definitely a technology that has been emerging over the past few decades from for spatial analysis and marine spatial planning and so forth. Where did you learn those skills? Did you learn that in your undergrad? Did you have to learn it as you were going through it? Just to give you perspective, when I did my master's degree back in the 2000s, I had to do like a special diploma like that for GIS and remote sensing and so forth. Did you have to do something similar, or did you just kind of learn it as you went through? And how much of a challenge was that for you to learn that right off the bat?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I mean, now that you mentioned that you had to do courses and things, I mean, because I've definitely done courses in other kinds of skill sets. But the BRUVs, we kind of just learn on the go and on the fly. There's no like set qualification or anything like that. It really is just learning by doing. I first was introduced to the method and the technologies with that internship. So that was back in 2015. But Anthony was one of who's now boss. He was one of the pioneers of the method in South Africa, having worked in collaboration with the Australian team, who were kind of like the lead developers of the BRUVs technologies. And, as it grew worldwide and the technology started developing and evolving over time. And then at the time, I think for his PhD, he kind of really brought it and expanded the platform in South Africa. So even now, I mean, it's really just through connection, through being a student or an intern within the program. We do a lot of training, capacity building, but we don't have like a proper accredited course or anything. But we have had multiple like 3 or 4 day workshops within the Western Indian Ocean region, actually. And it's actually a large part of what I do now in my work. Is that we train people on the methods and the standard operating procedures and all the technicalities around it. But I think because we're such a field-based, like data collection heavy team or platform, we, the opportunity just arose to really just be out in the field all the time and just learn by doing, really. And that's how I got the experience, essentially. And that's how, students and interns coming through the program are also getting experience we make sure that they get onto BRUVs trips, onto BRUVs field trips, and we do a lot of training along the way, just internally through the team. So yeah.
Nice.
And where are some of the areas what are some of the locations you've been like around, like say South Africa and stuff that you've been involved with? For
me, mostly the east and south coast. But I really have had the privilege of working in some amazing places. I mean, this is really the perk of this job, is getting out to sea and getting the opportunity to travel around and see places that I never would have seen. Most of my PhD work was on the east coast, so from Durban and south into the like Transkei, Pondoland, MPA area. But then I've mostly been involved with work going into the Transkei, so like the southeast and south coast, anywhere from between East London, PE, Mbega. And then I have done 1 or 2 field trips where we've got into more like the Western Cape kind of area and going into the De Hoop MPA and the Gullis area. So yeah, I've been to some amazing places and get to see some beautiful coastlines.
When you're doing this kind of like, when you guys put down like your BRUVs and stuff, because I haven't had like a lot of firsthand experience working with those things. How long, like when you go on an expedition, like what kind of like, when you get prepared for, like how many days you're going out there, like how many hours do you plan out for your field trip when you're actually like out at sea putting down the equipment?
So it varies. It depends on the like the project and what the goal is. So a lot of the time we actually like a platform provision. We provide the equipment and the expertise to support other people's projects. So it depends what they want. But generally I'd say in most cases they would range from like 2 to 4 week trips. So we do all of the preparations beforehand. We have to calibrate the cameras because they're stereo camera setups. So we calibrate all the cameras, we do all the packing, we buy all our groceries for the week, for the couple of weeks, and we just end up renting like a house or some very basic accommodation. It's normally like a 4 or 5 man team, depending if we want to bring on a couple of extra students or interns to just to do some extra training. But we work off a rubber duck, quite a big rubber duck now, but it's been around 7 to 9 meter kind of rubber duck boat. So we're not working off any big, most of the time we're not working off any big research vessels or any ship-based work. So it's quite easy and accessible, which is nice, which is the benefit of this platform. So we pack up all our stuff, we load the boat, we load the trailers, and then we normally just tow the boat around the country depending where we need to go and be, and then we'll set up there for, on average, I'd say about 3 weeks that we're in the field, and we just go out whenever there's a good weather day. And I mean, that can range from 3 days to 21 back-to-back work days or sea days. So it can be very heavy going, very long days at sea, tough working conditions, but I mean it's all worth it, obviously. So yeah, it's fun out there.
So when you go out and put down the gear, because you're working off a smaller platform, when you go out there to put down the gear, do you stay on station or do you have like buoy markers that you leave it and you come back?
Yeah, so the BRUVs are connected, the shallow water BRUVs. So we do have 2 types of systems that we work with now, but the ones that I mostly have been working with are what we call the shallow water BRUVs, which can be used to about 200 meters. And they are tethered with a rope and a surface marker buoy. So we normally work with about 4 or 5 actual BRUV systems, and we'll deploy all of them at once, and then they stay out there and they remain on the bottom for a standardized period of 60 minutes. So they're on the bottom for 1 hour, they sit on the bottom, but they do have a surface marker buoy, and we leave them. They are deployed at least 500 meters apart, just for that independence, because they are baited. So we generally don't always know how far the bait plume is going to extend. So we have a set distance of 500 meters, and then after the 1 hour is up, we just go and we pick them up, and we either will redeploy or we pick all of them up and redeploy all of them again. But basically, as long as the weather will allow, we just pick up and deploy all day long, pulling ropes, dropping them off again, pulling ropes, pulling more ropes, and that's kind of how it works.
A lot of pulling ropes.
Well, there's got to be more of the fun part of it, because yes, I assume once you've got all your data, then you're probably spending months looking at video for after that, doing your analysis.
Yes, that is one of the biggest challenges, actually, and that's one of our bottlenecks is this. Yes, for a little while. I don't know how long it's going to last.
That's all right.
But yeah, so I mean, the fun part, and we always joke about this, in that the fun part is being out at sea, collecting the data, and then we have to sit for hours and hours on end. Just to put into perspective, for my PhD work, which was back in like 2017, we collected the data. I sat for about 7 months non-stop every single day of my life, just watching fish swim past on the video, and I started going a little bit crazy at the end. But yeah, that's kind of also how I learned my fish IDs. But that is the hard part.
Yeah, you gotta. I think in those situations, you have to put in the time to really learn everything that goes into what you're seeing and learning the observations that you observe. in those situations, was that like a biodiversity thing? So you're trying to record every time you see a different species? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, exactly. So we try to, as the BRUVs platform, regardless of the research question, because that can vary from just looking at sharks or rays or a specific species or a group, but we try to, as best as possible, and also encourage other people to analyze for the full assemblage, because it takes so long to analyze the videos in the first place. We have to use very specialized software. The licenses are quite expensive. It takes quite a bit of training to learn how to do it. It's quite a technical process. And then you don't want to have to not go back and redo that all over again just because someone just picked out one species. So we really do try, we have to analyze all species in the video. So the idea is that you identify every species that you see, you have to count them at the max end. So it's actually a relative abundance measure, and that's basically the maximum number of individuals of that species you would see in one frame. So we would look through the full 60-minute video and find that frame where we see the most of that species. And then we also have the stereo camera, so then we can do the very accurate, very precise length measurements. And then that's really important for looking at things like biomass and size distributions, which are very important indicators. So it's quite a process, but we try to do that for all the species. And I mean, in your tropical areas, obviously, you've got hundreds of species to identify. It can be quite daunting.
Yeah. Does the software that you use, is it AI machine learning based, or has that come into play in going forward in your research or already in your research? Because I know, like, for instance, there's an organization called Citizens of the Reef that uses a citizen science project, but also combines it with AI, and they look at pictures that tour operators are using on the reef, and then they try and get people to categorize it into 4 different types, like boulder, plate, I forget what the other ones are. And then so they get the AI to do it, but they noticed they were only 70% or 75% accurate. But when they started to use people to confirm or deny it, it went up to like 90 some odd percent. So I know you've done work with citizen science before, and you kind of mentioned it where you have people identified. Have you come across any type of AI work or machine learning work that you can identify those species a lot more rapidly and then have people confirm? Is that even possible at this point?
Yeah, no, a very good question. And it really is coming into play at the moment. I mean, and I must say, for the last few years, we've just been like hoping and praying that this AI is going to come and save us from our hundreds and backlog of videos that we need to process. But there really is a big movement in this space, and I know, some countries, especially like the Australian groups and stuff, they are pumping a lot of money into this. There's such a progression, such a fast progression in this space, and I thought I was going to try keep up and try start applying some of these things, but I can't keep up with all these fancy the techie side behind it is just too much for my brain now, actually. But it's really cool because we definitely are seeing the light in how we are going to be able to use AI to be able to help us with this. So even within our space now, we've got a couple of students doing some AI applications. We've got a PhD student at the moment, Luther, who's really awesome, doing some super cool machine learning, machine vision stuff. So yeah, I think there's been a lot of progress in terms of single species stuff, but also length-based things. But I think in terms of the full assemblage, and there's still a long way to go, but I think we're getting there. I don't know when exactly. I'm a little bit removed from this space, but there's some amazing things out there now, and every time I go and look, I just see new applications, new technologies and tools, and so I definitely do think it's going to be a game changer for us. I mean, already we've seen some integration with the event measure software that we use, and there's some private companies doing a lot of applications within that already. So yeah, I'm very excited to see how it's going to turn out, and I'm just going to imagine telling those students back in the day I had to sit for 10 hours and analyze this video, and so I'll have some of those old
I was thinking the exact.
Sure.
That was my next question. You're going to be like the back in the day Kaylee. You're going to be like, back in the day, I used to have to watch this 7 hours a day. Yeah, all that. That's hilarious. That's so funny.
I just got one. I got one word for. I just got one word for you when you start talking AI is Terminator. Watch the movie. Learn from it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Exactly. Yeah.
now you
But it's
mentioned you spent some. Yeah, exactly. You mentioned you spent some time in the Seychelles.
So my now husband actually got a job there, and this was all just before COVID. He got a job at the University of Seychelles, and at the time I was actually writing up my PhD and just working from home. So we just packed up our bags and moved to Seychelles, and I just finished writing up from there. I managed to coax my supervisors into allowing me to do that, and then since then I actually just got remote working postdocs, and I just continued working in South Africa, but being in Seychelles. And we ended up spending what was meant to be 2 years. We ended up spending 6.5 years there, which was really cool because we got to collaborate with SciAb at the same time. We basically brought stereo BRUVs to the Seychelles. They've been doing a lot of other BRUVs work, but with the single camera systems, and we kind of developed the stereo BRUVs platform there. We did a lot of cool BRUVs projects, and we now have a really nice BRUVs network in Seychelles. And it really has expanded to the entire Western Indian Ocean region. We've got a really nice network now of people all over. I mean, the BRUVs community is growing by the day. So it really was just such a cool foot in the door to be able to do a lot of cool regional work as well, and really expand the SciAb platform into the WEO as well. So yeah.
So people listening, if they're not familiar with the Seychelles, which is a lot of people in North America, I've been there. When you finish this podcast, go online, Google up Seychelles.
It's gorgeous.
It's as beautiful as it looks. And if you had to write up somewhere your thesis, yeah, Seychelles would be probably one of my top 3 places to pick to do. So it's beautiful there. It's just absolutely beautiful in the Seychelles. So we're all very jealous and envious of you
lucky
that you got to. Yeah, you got to work there, and so you got to start a BRUV. I know. SciAb's done a lot of stuff up in the Seychelles. Have had people going up there. I know Paul Cowley had some students. Chantel Elston did her PhD up there, and of course Save Our Seas has one of their bases of operations out there too.
Yes.
Did you get much support? Did you happen to, did you get much support from Save Our Seas while you're out there for any of the work you were doing?
Yes, quite a lot actually. Well, we connected with them, and we also provided a lot of support for them in terms of, maybe sharing some equipment, getting equipment out there to the outer islands for them. I mean, they already had such a great platform there as well themselves, and then we kind of just really started working together and coming up with some joint projects, and they managed to get us out there to come and do some stereo BRUVs for them. So it was really developed into a really cool partnership actually.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, they've been super well. In fact, they helped get our podcast off the ground about 5 years ago. They were with Save Our Seas, and they've been really, they've been real supportive of. Been as part of our project at least my research as well. So with all this BRUV stuff, so what's your sort of do you have a favorite fish that you've seen yet?
I do. Funny you ask, actually. And then we had this round of questioning in a recent group of friends and colleagues, and no one else had a favorite fish, and I was surprised to hear this. But mine is the bluefin kingfish, as we call it, or trevally. So it's Caranx melamphagus.
Oh yeah.
If anyone wants to go look it up. It's just the coolest fish and so beautiful, and I get to see it because it's fairly common, and I get to see it when I'm scuba diving, and I see it on the BRUVs, and it's just definitely my favorite.
Okay, now I'll get a little more specific. What's your favorite shark or ray?
Oh, now that's a bit trickier. I mean, I love an eagle ray as common as they can be, but I think for sharks, this is tricky, and I can't believe I haven't actually thought of this properly yet.
Oh,
I think it's got to be the thresher.
Okay. That's the end of the show. We're done. No, go ahead. No, go ahead. No, I was going to say, because you were, I'll get to you were just in the Comores, doing some stuff, and I saw some really pretty, very cool sharks and rays. Rays are just flat sharks to me. That's all. And you had some really cool stuff. Can you talk a little bit about that project?
Yeah. So I've been so privileged to join on a couple of these Necton expeditions, actually. So that's how we got involved. Like I said, Cybers, the Mara platform is like supporting a provisional platform. So we provide the skills and the expertise and the technologies to do these BRUV surveys, and we collaborate and support on a lot of these projects. So we often get pulled in to these bigger kind of projects, and we'll form like one component of that. So this actually started, our partnership with Necton kind of started when we went to the Maldives in 2022, where we did a similar thing to what we did in the Comores. So our most recent one was the Comores expedition, but essentially it's a Necton, now also ocean census. I'm not sure about how it all works there within the institutions, but Necton kind of lead these expeditions and bring in a lot of partners, and we work with the local organizations and government, really trying to support these whether it's small island developing states or East African countries and countries in the Western Indian Ocean that are really needing this technical support to really assess their marine biodiversity and to explore their oceans and to improve management and protection, etc. So SCIAB have collaborated on a few of these projects. The most recent one was in the Comores, which I'd never been to, which was amazing. Such a beautiful country. So I really have had the privilege of seeing some really beautiful tropical island nations in the Indian Ocean. We started in the Maldives. Obviously, I lived in Seychelles, and now with the Comores. I know people are probably going to start hating on me now after all.
Tough life.
They're beautiful places.
Yeah, it was such an amazing. I know, such amazing opportunities, and I really am so privileged. We headed out. We spent a solid 4 weeks on the Angra Pequena, which is a local research vessel that is based here in Durban, actually. So they were also one of the partners. They sailed the boat up, and we all flew into Comores, and we spent 4 weeks out at sea, traveling around the main island, and then also to a couple of the island sites. As a team, we kind of identified some priority areas, working with local Comorian scientists and NGOs and local governments to really try identify places that we can go and collect observation data and a number of different types of data, actually, not just the BRUVs. We basically just have this mini scientific expedition to go and collect as much information as we can that can really feed into like these management and conservation processes, helping support decision making. And
that's why actually you mentioned the Necton. I also mentioned the Ocean Census. And this Ocean Census has been another organization that's been really supportive of the research I've been doing. Just want to give a shout out to them as well. They've been really supportive of this kind of research on stuff. But you saw some,
awesome.
If I remember right, you saw like one of the sharks, what I thought was kind of cool is you videotaped a false cat shark, Pseudotrichus.
Yes. That was one of our most exciting ones. I'd never seen anything like that. And I remember us all, like, the best part of this work is when you just, like, you have no idea what to expect and you put your lander BRUVs down there. So we were actually working with our really deep water systems. They're actually the acoustic release systems. So they're not tethered with a rope. And we send them to the deep oceans now, up to like 1,000 meters on this trip. But our deep system, brand new system, can actually go to 3,500 meters now, which is super exciting.
Wow.
On this trip, we managed to get to just under 1,000 meters. I think 980 meters or something like that. So we're really able to see some amazing things from like the completely unexplored deep ocean. And the false cat shark was super exciting. I didn't really know what it was. We were there looking through our Smith's book and trying to identify it, and then eventually when we found it, very cool to see.
Yeah, I know one of the ones that I saw that I think I tagged and named was that you videotaped a white-cheeked lantern shark, Edmopterus alphus.
Oh, cool.
Which was a species I'd actually named with some colleagues back in 2016. And that was a new record for the Comores that I'm aware of. I don't know. So that was definitely a new record. I know we got it. I
actually need to follow up with you, Dave. I need to follow up about all these species that you identified from this trip, because a lot of them we didn't know at the time, and we actually talked about trying to do a workshop with you or something. So I'm putting it out there live on screen that we're going to do this workshop with you one day. So now.
Perfect. We're holding to it.
Ant has my number. Because he sent me video clips from the Maldives and a few other places to ID. So Ant, give me a shout out. Well, I'd love to work with you on this here. So, yeah.
Well, I'm curious. I'm curious about the deep sea work that you've been doing, especially now with deep sea mining being such a huge, such a big thing in the U.S. in sort of the ICA, like the International Seabed Authority. With this work, is this new technology to go down to these depths? Because we just don't have the information about what's down there. We don't have the ability. We never had the ability like this before to kind of view what's down there on a longer term basis, other than sending some ROVs down. Is this something that you're looking at in the future to do more work and to provide a little bit more knowledge on what's down in the depths of 1,000 meters or so?
Yes, 100%. And that's totally kind of the direction that we are wanting to move in now. We're quite well established in terms of like our shallow coastal slope ecosystem surveys, with the shallow BRUVs, and a lot more people are doing that now and can start to fill those gaps. And SIAB have really pioneered and are really leading the work, I would say, in the Western Indian Ocean in terms of developing these kinds of technologies that are so much cheaper and more accessible than having to work off these big research ships that are really expensive. And, we can even use these deep water lander BRUVs off our 9-meter rubber duck, just with a small little davit and a winch system. So, yeah, we are really, wow. And I mean, the Ant and his team, working with the engineers, are constantly improving on the technologies and developing these so we call them lander BRUVs, stereo BRUVs landers. Mm-hmm. The big deep sea exploration, they're not technically those things that would land on the bottom, would be your landers. So these are essentially the same kind of thing. They're just our acoustic release benthic BRUVs. They obviously quite a bit bigger. They have this high density foam and the acoustic release mechanisms on them, and then we weight them with some extra ballast so that they sink down to the bottom, and then when we ping them with the acoustic transducer, then they basically float back up to the surface. And they're quite easy to use. The technology is quite accessible. They're a lot more cost effective. So it's really something we're trying to expand, not only in South Africa, but also in the Western Indian Ocean, and doing a lot of training around it and making it accessible, having these shared resources in the region so that people can do a lot more deep sea exploration, because that is obviously the huge gap, it's spatially, and especially with all this deep sea interest, mining interest, and, even deep sea fisheries and things, we have so little information in terms of our biodiversity and our vulnerable ecosystems. So I really do think it's going to be a game changer.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Especially if you can make it accessible to others to use, like small island states and so forth to use, because they're the ones who are getting the most pressure, especially in the Pacific right now, in the U.S. So it'd be nice for them to be able to have access to those. Yeah.
So where do you see, now that you have this kind of really cool setup for a position now, where do you see your career going from here? Where do you see yourself in the next, say, 10, 20 years?
It's interesting because we're actually just kind of talking about doing our marine platform strategy thinking for the next 5 years. And, for me personally, I really would just like to be a part of that growth. I see so many new exciting things happening, especially in the deep sea space. So I think I'd really like to move a bit more into that, because before I've really only been working into the shallow and slope kind of ecosystems, and also in like tropical areas. And I just think there's so much that we don't know about. There's so many unexplored areas that I just really want to go and see what's there, really. So I really do foresee myself just kind of continuing within the marine, remote imagery kind of space. There's so many cool things that we can use to actually just observe these environments that are totally unexplored, and we have no idea what's down there, learning about these new species. And so, but I think also really, like a lot of my passion is in training and capacity building, but also having that connectivity to the ocean. So also using our videos to create this awareness and this love for the ocean, and to really just take it and share it with other people. I have the privilege of seeing these amazing things, and I want to be able to share that with other people as well. So who knows, I might end up more in a science communication-y kind of space. But I do think I really am like a scientist at heart, and I like to get into the nitty gritties of the science and making sure that we can, really get some impactful science outputs that can be used for management or decision making or whatever it is. So I would like to start to work more in that space, making sure that we have impact in what we do and making sure that we don't just collect these samples and we see cool videos of sharks, but really that information can get translated into making meaningful decisions and having an impact, in what we love and what we love to protect.
Absolutely.
That's great. 100%. That's great. Well, Kaylee, it's been really awesome having you on the show here to talk about the research you've been doing and everything. We'll definitely have you back later on, and maybe you won't be camping next time. But this has really been kind of awesome. This has been really awesome. I have to say, it's really awesome to be out. You took the time to do that and stuff. It'll definitely be one of our more memorable shows, that's for sure. And but we'll definitely have you back in the future, and hopefully I'll have a chance to meet you in person on one of my next trips to South Africa. I'll definitely try to hit you up, and we'll maybe connect up and have a coffee or something. So anyway, thank you again so much for your time and everything.
I would love that. Please do reach out. Yeah. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. It's been great chatting.
Thank you, Kaylee, for joining us on today's episode of the Beyond Jaws podcast. It was great to have you on, especially Dave. It's our first time where someone's in a car on this podcast. I've done it. I've done that where someone was in Hawaii in a car in his pickup truck and doing an interview there. It comes with some challenges, but it was a lot of fun. It was great to see her with the lights on in the car, and then the lights going off automatically and the lights coming on. It was a lot of fun to get it. It makes it a little bit more dynamic, but it's also goes to show Kaylee just loves being outdoors. She loves being in the wilderness. She loves being underwater, of course, as well. But we got to talk about a lot of really interesting stuff. Stereo BRUVs, where you can measure the length of the fish and different types of organisms. Deep sea BRUVs, which was really cool. Living in the Seychelles for 6 years, living in or doing some work in the Comoros, and then just being a part of SciAb, which allows her to do all this different type of research, which I think is amazing. So what are your thoughts just coming off this interview? What were you thinking in terms of what stood out to you?
Well, I was obviously pretty interested, particularly because I'd seen she was doing some work in the Comoros, which is a place I haven't been, but it's got an amazing history to it. And that was where the second coelacanth was discovered back in 1952 or so, 51, right. 52. J.L.B. Smith, who the Institute used to be named after at one time. And so there's a bit of I had a bit of a connection there nostalgia-wise. And so that was kind of really cool. And they've been doing a lot of, she works with Dr. Anthony Bernard, who's at the SciAb there, who I do know. And I've done identifications for them over the years with the sharks. And I know one of the coolest sharks she talked about was seeing the false cat shark, why she was doing there. And that was pretty awesome to see swimming around in situ versus being dead on a boat. Indeed. And at least I ID'd a couple of pictures they had, including one lantern shark, which was a new record for the Comores, and it was actually a species I'd named about 10 years ago. And this was the first record of it from the Comores. That was kind of nice for me. It was actually some science in action actually happening. There you go. And as you say, it was kind of neat having her do this from her car while she's out on a camping expedition right now with her husband. So that was a new one. That was definitely a new one doing there. So, but yeah, she was great. So I didn't know her as well as some of the other people we have on from South Africa. But just another one of these dynamic young researchers up and coming in South Africa. And I was really glad we had her on. And it's going to be fun to have her back on again, in time, and to kind of reflect on this interview with her.
Absolutely. It was just it was kind of cool because is definitely different than some of the episodes that we've done in the past, where we're talking about some of the science that she's been able to do. We really got in deep with BRUVs, looking at deep sea ability to look at what's in the deep sea. I mean, just imagine that, Dave, for you as a lost shark guy, to be able to maybe catch some of those on underwater. In 900 meters, I think is what she said, or just over 900 meters. Yeah. There's probably some stuff that you haven't seen before, or we haven't seen before, and maybe an ability to to add new species. Let me ask you this question: you're the expert on discovering species and naming them. Would you be able to just name a new species if you just see it on video.
No, you
have
have
to
actually
have the body.
You have to have a body, as you say, and you have to, because it's like an archive, like an artifact you put into a museum. And so if somebody comes along later on and has a similar looking species, they need to compare to that, because that what they call the holotype, that is what it's all based off of.
Okay.
So a videotape's not going to do it.
So do you think that'll change in the future though? Or do you think that it'll always be, you always need like the holotype?
You're going to have a holotype specimen, because they're so, as much as you get used to like trying to identify stuff through videos, there's always a little bit of uncertainty.
Right.
And so you want to actually have a specimen in hand that you can pick up and look at. And I can tell you that a lot of species are very similar. And so you have, and the characteristics are going to be very subtle with sharks, particularly things like lantern sharks, skates, some of the other cat sharks. You have to actually physically have a specimen to look at. You can't really confirm it. You get the genus, but not the species sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, look, this was a fun episode. Kaylee was awesome. Can't wait to have her back on, talk more science and more SciAb work that she's been able, or she will be able to do. There's so much stuff that we could probably dive into, maybe even on a bonus episode with some of the work that she's been doing, and her colleagues. But I really thought it was cool that SciAb was part of so many different projects. They support a lot of different projects from a technology point of view and an expertise point of view, but then, to support other countries and other islands that are doing some pretty incredible things. So that was really cool to be able to hear that, especially living in the Seychelles. That's pretty awesome. But we'll have Kaylee back for sure. And we'll put down ways that you can contact her. And of course, Dave, if somebody wanted to contact you, how would they do so?
Lost Shark Guy on Instagram is probably the best one, or you go to my YouTube channel, Lost Shark Guy.
Awesome.
And check out the series Andrew and I are working on, searching for lost sharks, extinct or alive, and consider subscribing. Appreciate it.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, again, thank you very much, Dave. And if people wanted to watch this, if you're watching this on YouTube, let us know what you think. Put in the comments below. Subscribe. And of course, if you don't know how to get a hold of us, you can go to Instagram, Beyond Jaws Pod. And we appreciate both of Dave and I. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Beyond Jaws podcast. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time. And happy conservation.